Okay, we are now live.
Thank you very much, Mr. Giancoli. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the January 21st Board of Education meeting for the Horsehead Central School District. We are still under the requirements of the orange zone as well as the meeting for virtual board meetings. We are recording this as a purpose of maintaining a transparent process as well as a recording of the happenings of the Horseheads Board of Education during COVID-19. We are a little darker this evening just because we are in the schools, socially distanced and spaced out. We are trying to get our technical difficulties out if you hear some reverberation, so please bear with us as we go into tonight's Board of Education meeting. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to our board president, Ms. Christine Dale.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. We are returning from executive session and I'd like to get started. So if everybody could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and join me in the pledge. Take your computers off of mute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the Republic, the nation, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So first up on our meeting tonight are the board meeting minutes from our last meeting on December 17th. So can I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or discussion on the minutes before we vote? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And any abstentions? Okay, thank you. Moving on to our community question and comments. So this is the first time since March that we're actually opening up for community members to come to the board meeting and state their question or their comment live. Prior to tonight, we've had an opportunity for people to email into the school any questions or concerns that they've had, and we've addressed those at board meetings monthly. But due to feedback, we have opened this up. So we have individuals that can come to the school. They will participate as well via Zoom, but be able to state their comments and their questions. So we'll start off. Per our board policy, we typically will allow about 30 minutes for public comment and questions. Each individual is asked to state their name and address, and then they'll get 3 minutes to share their concern or their question. So it looks like we do have somebody who is present. So I'll ask you to please state your name and your address.
My name is Amy Sedlansky, and I live at 310 Wexford Lane.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry, there's some feedback. I have 3 children in 4th and 5th grades. I just wanted to add that. I want to thank the board for working to get all of our district schools open and for allowing this public forum at the January Board of Education meeting. That being said, I encourage you as a board to not become complacent now that our children are back in school part-time. Meeting minimum requirements should not be your only goal. I voted for you to serve on this board because I felt you shared my vision of providing exceptional opportunities to the children of our district. Good enough is not enough for the children of Horseheads. I challenge you to explore creative solutions to many of the issues we face as you begin building the district budget and developing plans for the 21-22 school year. And when you proactively develop these plans, strive to have the kids in the classroom 5 days a week. While life will never be the same as it was pre-pandemic, it is essential for our children's growth to have the opportunity of in-person instruction. I implore you to be transparent with the community as you develop your plan to return to a full-time in-person instruction model. Socialization and developing meaningful relationships with teachers and peers are essential to the development of the whole child. Attempting this while remote is extremely difficult, if not impossible, for many children and educators. I encourage the district to consider moving from a cohort and remote option to an in-person and remote option. To not put more pressure on the overwhelmed and understaffed transportation department, consider asking parents to volunteer to provide transportation to and from school on the days they're not provided busing. The transportation survey sent out this past summer was vague and misunderstood by many. Parents and guardians should be resurveyed. The last 10 months have been challenging to say the least. I ask two things of you. First, transparency and proactivity as you develop a plan to get our children back in the classroom on a full-time basis. And second, that you consider creative solutions to some of the issues we're currently dealing with, so that when our children return to school full-time, it's not just good enough, that it's exceptional. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Amy. I appreciate you coming and sharing your thoughts and concerns. Some of the concerns that you have, I know that Dr. Douglas has recently, just today, continued to post some more answers to questions that have been submitted. So Dr. Douglas, I'm just going to ask you if you can just maybe give an overview of some of those that were posted today, in case not everybody had a chance to read those.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Amy. Again, I'm sorry, my computer went haywonky right as you started, so I got in about halfway through.
Okay, I'll
but-
email it to you.
Yeah, I would appreciate that. But one of the things is, just so that, and we put this up as well so that the whole community knows, we were, and this is just hindsight, we were the only district to involve stakeholders from all of our groups across the area in our development of this year's plan. Now, it may not be something that everybody wanted, but it met the requirements that we're obligated to meet under the state. But I do agree with you. I think there's not a single teacher or board member or anybody, especially students, that do not want to return 5 days a week, every day in person, even if it meant masks all the time. The only drawback, like I had to mention in our response, is that literally we cannot do that with the current regulations. And I know there is a group advocating with Senator O'Mara tonight, as well as at Albany with the governor. I myself and my superintendent colleagues are doing the same thing regularly, if not monthly, with the Secretary of New York State Education, which is Dan Fuller. But what happens is we're still under the guise of the executive order. Now, some people will say that's an interpretation issue. We have followed the order in accordance with our legal guidelines that we are obligated. So we would look forward to the day that hopefully soon, and I do believe, we're closer to the light at the end of the tunnel than the darkness that we entered back in March. And I hope that that tunnel gets lighter and lighter each day, and quicker we emerge from it. So I think that's the biggest thing. I said, one of the things I'd say we're all going to have some adjustments to is even coming back to 5-person a day in-person school. Even the students will have that difficulty adjustment, whether it's sometime this year or next year in the future, because we are going to have to devise some of those ways for addressing the gap, as well as addressing creative ways to try to assist our students to move forward. And that is a discussion that's ongoing. It's ongoing with our staff, and it's ongoing at the state level and with state education. So I think all of those are valid points. We are going to do it. And just like we tape record everything, we are trying to have those discussions at our board meeting. Until recently, we don't get many people that really do come out, and we do appreciate people watching, especially because it's a little easier at home. But that active engagement is what we need to just write me a question, and I always bring it up to my staff. So I want to thank you and hope that helps.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Amy, could you help me with one thing? Is there anybody else out there? I just can't see out there.
No.
Okay,
Yeah, Nancy
you.
texted me saying there's nobody else, so
okay, thank you.
thank you. For those of you that are watching at home, just to remind you, we will do our best to continue this format moving forward. But also, anytime you have a question, please email it into the district. And if it's something that you'd want to address the board with, please address it to the board. And Dr. Douglas always shares it with us and we will discuss it as a board. So feel free anytime you have a question to submit it into the Horseheads District, and we will do our best. Most recently, Dr. Douglas and Sue Parazzolo have posted several questions that have come in recently, and the answers to those questions are posted online, and those will also continue to be updated to keep everybody informed. And as things change, if things change based on answers that were given in the past, those will continue to be updated as well. We're in a moving environment right now, and we're trying to adjust as quickly as we can. And we will continue to communicate out as those requirements and as things continue to change. Okay, so next up, we have a report from our student representative. So Sarah, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So we have returned to hybrid learning, which is very exciting now, but it is finals week at the high school. So all the students are cramming in those last minute study sessions before the big final. But most of the students are waiting to come back for second semester compared to what it is after break. They are waiting for second semester to return, and more students that were going from remote to hybrid, they're probably going to come back too, which is also very exciting. Along with that, in the second semesters, we're going to be finally opening up our cafeteria and our library. And then we also have a return of our sports. And I know that was something that the students were dying to get to this year. And we are able to open up for open gyms now, and teammates are loving to get back to the game that they love. Our Unified Raiders bowling team is getting ready as well, which is very exciting. They're having a parents meeting next Wednesday, and they're still getting registered students who want to participate in that. And also within the individual classes, the freshman class is doing their preparations for the spring fundraiser, and as well as working on their community service project. They're going to be working with cleaning up our local parks, and they're hoping for early spring so that they can get on that as soon as possible. The junior class is also working on their service project, and they're working with the food bank and the backpack program to help provide nutritious foods for students who are unable to get access to those, and on like the weekends or in the holiday breaks. And Mrs. Carpenter said that there are only 42 school districts in the Southern Tier that serve in the food bank, and she and the class are thrilled to be able to lend a hand to this cause. And also the juniors will be getting ready to take the PSAT soon. And with that, the senior classes also have been very busy with planning some of their activities. We are having a class of 2021 sale starting in February, and it'll be a whole bunch of our apparel, sweatshirts, t-shirts, socks, masks we're handing out too. And all designs and slogans were designed by our very own seniors, which is very sweet. We are also planning our community service project, and we just decided that we're going to be helping and supporting the frontline workers, getting them some of the essentials that they need or some of the things that they want to have by their sides. And we are working to find ways that they can contribute to them, whether it's a creative thing, whether it's a little thank you card, or if it's an item that they need. We are also working on ways to have a safe prom, because I'm sure the seniors, they didn't get a chance to have a prom in their junior year, and they just want to get one more last hurrah before graduating. And we are working on a way to provide a COVID-safe prom, and as well as some other spring events for the senior class. And it is really great seeing this from my perspective, to see how active all the classes are being in the community. And it really warms my heart to see that they're representing the Horseheads Blue Raiders that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for being such a great, optimistic student rep. We really appreciate it, and great report. And it's nice to see that we're starting to get more activity in the school and more people involved. And, hopefully that will just continue to rise as the spring semester gets started and continues to progress. So thank you, Sarah. Okay, we don't have any formal presentations for tonight. So we're going to skip over and go right to the superintendent report with Dr. Douglas.
Thank you, President Dale. Let me just turn this up a little. It is great to have the school entirely fully open. It does pose some challenges with the recent surge that we have had. To give the community a little sort of experience, when we came back, we had 13 positives and about 36 to 40 direct contacts just in the first week from the 4th to 11th. But if you think that's a lot, that really didn't impact us because most of those issues were already identified during the holiday and they were already quarantined. It was really last week and this week that we have seen a surge. And we truly want to thank all the parents who have helped us out with the transportation runs because our transportation department has been hit severely. Especially in dispatching our maintenance crews, even though all the mechanical issues are being addressed on a regular basis, there's no issue to worry there. It just took a lot of drivers off the road. So parents have been very good at all levels and we appreciate that. And we're already starting to see some of our drivers come back this week now that they're coming off of quarantine. One of the things is we are still seeing some uptick in cases, but not necessarily all in one area. Our surveillance testing has been going well, which has allowed us to open. And I know other districts in the county are not fully opened at this point, and I believe their full date of being fully open will be the start of the second semester, which I think you heard Sarah said, some kids are making the obvious choice because of that surge potential just to stay remote at that point, and then they will all be coming back. I certainly understand that that is an issue and we have to try to adjust to it just because it does impact scheduling and everything else. In general, we are much lower now in our infection rate than we were in October when we closed, but we didn't close because of the infection rate. We closed because we were without 60 something plus staff members at one time. Right now, we're actually starting to be able to manage much more impacts to our staff because our staff has been doing a wonderful job that if they are ill, they have been teaching from home if we can allow it. And we've been trying to get subs where we can. But this is a very trying time for all. And I appreciate everybody's job trying to pull together and make everything successful. It comes to the point that, you know, instructionally trying to adjust a schedule in the middle of the year is very difficult. And I know many people would like us to consider using Wednesdays differently, go 5 days a week, or even just go 3 days a week. Those are some of the discussions we are having in the district to see if there's any area where we could make some tweaks. But the more difficult challenge was that this program, educational program and format was, as I said earlier, developed by our stakeholder groups, that they went through a lot of these early decisions and ferreted out what were the issues with each one and where the problems actually occur. And that is the challenge, because when we think, well, you could do this on Wednesday, or you could rotate 3 days a week, 2 days a week, the issue becomes how does it impact all the other areas of the school district, but not only the school district, all the other school districts that we touch, either with staffing, parents, childcare, and the like. A lot of people would not realize that if we change the structure of our schedule right now, it could have an impact in Elmira or Elmira Heights or Corning, not because of we're doing anything, it's just because the coverage for that child changes, which could force staffing issues and people making choices, which we saw at the beginning of the year, that they have to cover childcare and they choose not to work. If that happens in any district, that will have a significant educational impact. So it's all these things. Plus, we also have to remember that we are here for the in-person student and the remote student, and that Wednesday is primarily set aside for that remote student to really get their 1 day a week connection with their teachers, besides the every day a week with every student. So there's uniquenesses, but the teaching staff, the administration are working on having some discussions. And I wanted to give some time to Tony in case he wanted to give you some of the other areas that are of concern, or some areas that we have to watch as potential pitfalls, as well as ask the board if there's any suggestions that you would have as well. Tony?
Sure. And as Tom said, this has been an ongoing conversation amongst many. And the design, when we started off, looked at, I want to say it was upwards of 9 models. And some of those models had an ABC adjustment, and they were vetted over the course of 3 days to try to figure out how we operate our systems, giving the mandates that still haven't changed to result ourselves in this current system. And Tom, you're right on the 2 points that you mentioned. The ripple effects it has, especially to some of our most neediest of students, our English E&L, our English as a second language students, our special ed students, and some of the work we're doing there, and the remote students. Sarah did a nice job to talk about. We do have these current students that have chosen. They're currently in our hybrid structure. We still have class seats dedicated to them for a variety of reasons. They've chosen not to come back immediately and plan on coming back at the semester switch in February. We have a whole host of other students throughout the district that we put out a survey that will be coming back and asked to come back to the district. Even with all those numbers told, we will still have about 21% of our district, total district, on remote that have selected to remain remote for the remainder of the school year. So those Wednesdays and the use of that time on Wednesdays, these are students that do not get the personal touch in person and are able to come in for a variety of different reasons. And the use of that time, no doubt, as was said by all, we would love to have more students in the building. We know that's beneficial. We do have parameters we have to work under, and we do have to consider those 750 kids who are not coming in at all and will remain in remote for the remainder of the school year. And then, like I said, so the ripple and the remote students of concern, but we still have these conversations ad nauseum over and over to make sure we are making the right call and doing the right thing by the parameters provided by the health department in New York State. A challenge that we're running into and to put on the radar, obviously we've had 240 students request to come back in the second semester. They are the second marking period. You know, these are students that have been remote since the beginning of the school year. They have chosen that remote structure. And now we said as a system, we would look in January to see if they had a change of mind so that we can reconstruct the system to meet the needs of the students in the community as best we can. These 240 students amongst our 7 buildings we have to really balance that. What are the capacities of those classrooms given the guidance we have and how many seats are there? A lot of them are factored in and will be able to come back without a hitch. I dare say 80 to 90% of the students of those 240 will be able to come back into our system and it'll be fit in. Transportation, Katie and I are having conversations with Pete, the director of supervisor of transportation, and working through those issues and how we can make that happen. As our community member said earlier, you know, transportation by the parent is very, we'll be looking back at that and asking for that assistance to make this all happen. We still have some parameters that our transportation works on and how many could be on a bus, but we want to make that more efficient as best we can in running our busing system and transportation. So ongoing conversations with them, but in our classrooms, a good 80 to 90% of those students that are requesting to come back that have not yet been in our buildings, we should be able to meet that need and have a classroom space for them. There'll be some that might currently have a teacher that the capacity is there, and we, especially at the 712, where we have to rewrite an entire schedule because a particular classroom only by our capacities only has 10 seats in it, and we can't get, they would be the 11th in-person person on a cohort A. So conversations with families that our counselors and administrators are going to have about either mixing around a schedule and trying to meet the needs of the students. And if some case and worst case scenarios, moving a cohort A from an A to a B and in situations like that, but always working with the families to try to make it happen. But there's always those outliers, those difficult cases, but the connection with families is strong, and I'm confident in our administrators, our counselors, and those that work with the families to meet their needs as best we can for these 240 students. Well, then all of us, our teachers, maintaining that connection with our remote students, that 750 kids still not with us. So that's some of what's happening right now. And as Tom said, I'm all ears as always for suggestions from people on how we can better do our job and meet the needs given the parameters we have.
So at this time, I just wanted to open the questions real quick before I finish. So Dan?
Yeah, Tony, the 240 students, just to be clear, so those were students that were 100% remote and have indicated a desire to return to a hybrid posture. And I know that's the total. Is it disproportionately, does that group break down, kind of evenly? Is it primarily secondary or elementary students? Can you talk about the breakdown a little bit more?
Yeah, I can give you the breakdown on the numbers I have right now. There could be a couple extra, as you can imagine with surveys. A principal might have, or a counselor might have looked at the number or looked at the names on the list and say, wait, I think I had a conversation with that family and they're not on this list, and we've reached out. So we didn't even rely on a passive, you let us know. As a system, we said, hold on, I think we're missing a name here. I seem to recall a conversation. So our staff members have been reaching out to families. So these are numbers based on that survey, but I think there's a couple extra here or there to be mentioned. So for instance, Big Flats has 25 students that have requested that have been out, haven't been in this building at all, haven't been in Big Flats at all. 25 students asking to return. 27 at Center Street. So proportionally still there. 36 at Gardner Road, seems like inflated, but based on the population of Gardner Road, that is proportionate. And Ridge Road at 20, maybe slightly less than the average, but still within a mean.
As well, Tony, it's not like in any one grade level, it's proportionally spread across the grade levels as well.
At the intermediate school, we have 26, and at the middle school, we have 30. So 2 grade levels in each of those buildings, proportionally equal. And if you double those for the high school and 4 grade levels we have there, there's 76 individuals at the 9 through 12. So maybe if anything, the high school might have a handful more on average than the others, but still relatively pretty within each other. Not a lot of variables.
Thank you.
Other questions? Well, again, we'll keep working with our staff, our building principals, and trying to keep everything flowing. It is interesting I didn't get a chance to watch today, and I don't know what our new president has said about schooling, but I know the main focus and an executive order is coming about reopening schools. I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's a nebulous statement and so forth, but we will try to update the board once we learn more. Obviously, we have our budget development starting very soon. We did get our worst case aid run scenarios, which are a worst case betting on at least $6 billion from the federal government, which has not materialized yet. So we just don't know. Best case is 15 billion comes from the federal government, and supposedly it takes away all the issues in our worst case. The hard part is we're probably going to have to develop a budget with not firm figures until the federal government finalizes, according to our governor. And he's trying to do the best with what he has, but I wish he would open up the $7.2 billion reserve purse that he has and already take a big swing at it, but that's not happening at this point. We encourage everybody to advocate for all of these issues that we've talked about this evening, as well as reopening, vaccination rollout, county being removed from the orange zone with the state level, because unfortunately we're bound by state authority and we must follow their rules, which one of the questions asked, do we go in above and beyond? We are following the state guidelines. We do not go above and beyond. Now, we did go above and beyond initially for the health guidance for isolation, quarantining at the very beginning of the year, because we were supported by the Department of Health as trying to take a preemptive approach and trying to minimize spread. As we got more information from the State Department of Health, the state said nobody can go above and beyond, even if it's approved by the Department of Health in your local areas. And we have been under that guide since the early part of December. So we are absolutely at the state regulations, not going above and beyond, and following the rules and regulations for all avenues of what we must monitor as a school district. In addition, we do have some nice news to report on vaccination in the schools. I know that is on everybody's minds. We did a first run and we had over about 400 plus staff that would like to get the vaccination. Currently, as of today, we were fortunate enough to work with Chemung County as well as Guthrie and Arnett have been very helpful in the area. Of the 400 plus individuals that have requested the vaccination, we right now know that at least 50% of those have a shot in the arm at this point, and they are scheduled for their second. We are hoping that over the next 4 or 5 weeks, if we can continue this 45 to 50 shots a week, we would be at 100% of those people that initially requested. Once we get to that point, we will do a second request to catch anybody else. At this point, the biggest question is will the school district mandate? The school district cannot mandate a vaccination for student or staff at this time because it's an emergency use authorization. And until the federal government or the government mandates any type of vaccination, the school has no authority, so we must follow the laws. But that's a good thing here. Hopefully, as the communities get that access as well as our high-risk populations, that will help to even open up more things quickly. Just so the board, on February 1st will be our crossover. We should have the library and I believe the cafeteria, at least in its final stages, at 8 o'clock in the morning on February 1st. I'd like to invite the board in so that I can give you guys a tour first. And then before we open, we will probably ask people from the community to schedule so we could take groups of maybe 4 or 5 through as sort of an open house if somebody wishes to. But we'll have to organize that still. And that's probably a surprise to Mike Coughlin, who's listening, because I know it is to Katie. But we want to be very transparent because this is what the community wanted, is to update the school district, and we have much more work to do even when this project is done. And some of the biggest things will be open in the very near future that are big momentum changers for our kids. I think our kids are really looking forward to it. Honestly, I can't wait till the first day they walk into the cafeteria. They may have to be socially distanced, but they're going to look at something where they ask, can we please have school colors? The school colors are blue and white, and that is the base of our plan for the entire school. In addition, black and gray highlights are also in there, because those are the 4 colors we'll use for each of our classes, as well as how we will utilize it within our color scheme throughout the district. So I look forward to doing that with the entire board and the community as we go forward, as we try to represent bringing Horseheads back to the same level of facilities, operations, and education that they've always been known for. That concludes my report. Sorry, it was a little long, but.
Thank you. Good news. We ended on some good news. So thank you very much. Moving on to item 7, the president's report. The only thing that I have before we go through policy committee is I just, again, I say this at every board meeting. I'm going to continue to say it and repeat it, but I just want to, from the bottom of my heart, I just want to thank all of the staff, all the administrators, all the families out there. This has been a very trying time, and we're learning as we go. There's new things that happen on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and it's not easy for anybody. And I know, our staff has been so flexible in this constantly changing environment. I know our families have been very flexible. There's been a lot of stress on our families, on our students, on our staff. And, I just appreciate your patience and your understanding as we continue to navigate through all of this, realizing that, decisions are very, very difficult. And in some cases, there's really no right answer. And we're just trying to do the best that we can and really get input from as many people as we can as decisions are being made, as long as we're staying within the state guidelines. So thank you all for your patience and your understanding. And, hopefully the light is at the end of the tunnel and we're going to be able to get through the rest of the school year and return to some sort of normalcy as we continue to move forward. So thank you. We did not have an audit committee this past month, but there was a policy committee. So I'll turn it over to that committee to go through their report.
We met on January 7th and we discussed policies 2520, 2530, 2550, and 2560, which deal with new board member development opportunities, membership in school board associations, board member compensation and expenses, and board member insurance. We have We've made recommended changes to all 4 of those that are up for first reading tonight. And we reviewed our second reading policies on policy dissemination, policy review and evaluation, and perspective and new board member orientation, which are up for final adoption tonight.
Thank you, Doug. Moving on to our finance items for action. Up for vote tonight, we have 8.02 through 8.13. So can I have a motion, please?
Can I hold up for 1 second, Ms. Dale?
Sure.
We did not cover a change to agenda that we need to in the finance section. Katie, could you let everybody know?
Yep, so I would ask that we amend the agenda tonight to remove item 8.10 for the board's consideration tonight. This was something we've been vetting up to the last minute of this board meeting as a different, in conjunction with our capital project bid that's on the street. This was a cooperative purchasing option that was presented to us to bid in conjunction with our other bid that's on the street. However, numerous conversations with our legal counsel, he has some concerns with how this particular purchasing cooperative works and if it really conforms with our bidding requirements under general municipal law. So given the discomfort of our school council, I cannot recommend that we move forward with this particular item.
I concur. I've already ordered that it be immediately put out the public notice and bid, and we will extend our bid by 1 week to accommodate the change.
Okay. Okay, so just, I'm sorry, what number was that?
8.10.
Thank you. Okay, sorry. Looking right at it, but I was not reading the right one. Okay, so if I can have a motion for 8.02 through 8.13 minus 8.10.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any comments or questions or discussion on any of these items? Warren?
I have questions on 2 documents in this section. The first question is on 8.12, the GST BOCES cost allocation. On page 2, it cites 3 changes to the cost methodology. So I guess what I want to know is, what does that mean? Is there a positive impact for us, a negative impact? Is it a wash? I guess I need an explanation of what happens here.
Katie?
Sure. So none of these will have a significant impact on our services with BOCES. 5.25 even mentions that it was changed several years ago, but the service guide itself didn't get updated. There's typically changes like this each year when the cost methodologies, are reviewed, typically not to any significance on how we're billed.
Okay, thank you. And then on 8.08, which is the revenue and expense report, I believe it on the second or third page, I don't remember exactly where it was. It says the state aid basic, and the original estimation was for 18.4 million, I assume, from the state. And to date, we've received 2.8 million, which leaves a hole of 15.6 million. So is that typically backloaded? I know the state has said they're going to withhold. Do we have any sense? I mean, are we looking at a $15.6 million shortfall, or
Nope.
where do you think it might be?
No, he's just making interest on it, Warren.
Yeah, so state aid is paid over the course of the entire school year at various points in time. It's not a front-loaded revenue source. So this is typical. We'll continue to receive our payments As of right now, we haven't seen any additional 20% reductions. That can always change. That's still looming out there. In his recent proposal, he has indicated that he may be moving away from the 20% to a 5% reduction if he does need to reduce. But again, we haven't seen that yet, but we're continuing to keep an eye on it. So this anticipated balance still holds. It's money we are still expecting to receive.
Yeah, and if I may add, Warren, in the state comments the other day that we had, it was referenced that he would be now correcting the budget director from 20% down to 5% because of his projections. That's what we've been told in my organization. But the next big meeting, I believe, is March. We're supposed to see everything but 5% in it for right now.
So just so I'm clear, typically it's backloaded, the aid, and we don't receive it up front. We receive it later in the school year, and that's
Correct.
a normal process.
Yes. Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other comments or discussion? Okay. Doug?
Thank you. As a BOCES employee, I need to abstain on 8.12 to avoid the appearance of impropriety.
Okay, thank you. So all those in favor of 8.02 through 8.13 minus 810, say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. And abstentions, we have Doug on 812. Okay, thank you. Moving on to our personnel items for action. We have 9.02 and 9.03. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any comments or discussion on either of those?
Before the board members make a discussion, I'd like to bring attention to, we did have to do a last minute walkthrough in regards to an administrative appointment for the retirement position of Miss Robin Dubrava at the intermediate school. We have included that. It would be at effective time to be determined, but it is an in-house appointment of an individual. But because Mr. Brava retires in just a few short weeks, we wanted to try to get this, and we rushed it today to get finished with the process. So if there's any problems with that, please let me know and I would pull that. But this is our recommendation from a longstanding member of our instructional force who has also done their administrative internship here. And again, this is an interim appointment only until June 30th.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or discussion? Warren?
On 9.02, the HR recommendations on page 3, there's the extracurricular stipend appointments. On line 13, it says the stipend is to be determined. I was just curious why we couldn't determine that stipend and all the other ones.
Is that
were
line
determined.
12? Warren, is that line 12, district transition coordinator?
It is on the new version. Are you looking at transition coordinator, Warren?
When I read this morning at 6:30 a.m.
Yes.
was line 13, page 3.
There actually was
To
a
be
deletion.
determined.
There was a deletion of line 1 on that R as a result of our appointment to the interim administrative position. So that's why there's one less appointment there. Transition coordinator is TBD. This is a grant funded position, and we do have a candidate who has been selected for that position, and Kelly Squires is going to be working very closely to determine the scope of work that is needed on this position, and then determine the stipend accordingly. It's not one that is set out by contract in the HGA contract.
All right, thank you.
Mary Ann?
I would just like to make a statement that I see in the retirements, number 9, that Mrs. Steigerwald is retiring. My children were fortunate enough to have her as a science teacher, and I would just like to publicly wish her well.
And if I may add, Mary Ann, because of Warren's comments before, we wanted to make sure at our next board meeting on the 4th, we will have something for everybody to be brought around and participate in. How's that, Warren?
Great, thank you. Get rid of the legalese.
Okay, any other comments or discussion? Okay. All those in favor, say aye. Raise your hands.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. And any abstentions? Okay, thank you. Moving on to our miscellaneous items for action. We have 10.02 through 10.07. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments, questions, or discussion? Okay, Doug? Okay, you went off mute, so I was just checking. All those in favor of 10.02 through 10.07, say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. And any abstentions? Okay. Moving on to item 11, our board policies, our second reading, those that are up for an action vote tonight. We have 11.02 through 11.04. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on any of these? Okay. All those in favor of 11.02 through 11.04, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. And any abstentions? Okay, now we have item 12, our board policies, first reading, no action. We have 12.01, 12.04. Any comments or questions or concerns? Okay, we will bring these to the next board meeting for vote. Next, item 13, board member comments. Anybody have anything to share tonight? Dan?
Thank you. Just two different things. The one, I wanted to just, on behalf of myself as a parent, community member, board member, express my gratitude and thanks to the staff and the teachers and everyone that's worked so hard to be able to allow the students to come back to school in the hybrid. I know with the testing that's required and all the different aspects of it, it's extremely complex and hard work, but I think it's really important, and I'm glad we were able to do it. So thank you for that to all the folks in the district who worked so hard to do it. And then just, I wanted to add myself, I didn't think it was appropriate earlier, but I knew I could comment in this section that I appreciated Ms. Zidlansky coming out and making the comment that she did. I think that's critically important for us as a board to hear from folks in the community. I think, I know that there was a collection of parents and members who submitted questions and the district worked to provide those answers. And I think that's just a valuable exercise. And of course, no one is going to like all the answers. This is a circumstance that we're going through where it's not ideal, and we all are having to kind of compromise and find the best path forward. Certainly, that's how I'm approaching this, and I think that's how the board is. But I commend those parents and community members for their desire to get involved. I think allowing the comment like we did tonight was the right thing, and I hope we continue that. And particularly for for Amy, for what she came and said, I think you know, those were all good goals for us to try to aspire to as we work through these issues. So I just wanted to thank her for that, and for everyone for their involvement and pushing to make Horsets the best it can be. Thank you.
If I can add to Mr. Christmas, you're so right. I have no problem continuing this. We may have to tweak some of the ins and out of the technical because we're trying to make sure everybody can at least see it at home. But I will tell you, it is much easier to have individuals come instead of me trying to remember the multitude of conversations that I have over the month as well. And I appreciate Amy and all those that have tried to help at least openly communicate.
Okay, Doug?
Yeah, I really appreciate her comments too. And I think that is the direction the district needs to go. We need to get to 5-day in-person instruction as soon as possible. The Q&A on the website, I very much appreciate the district responding to many parents' concerns about this. Unfortunately, some of the more crucial questions and answers apparently went up on the website just before this meeting. I've not had a chance to review them personally myself, but I do appreciate the time that the administration is taking to respond to many, many parents' questions. I do want to respond to a few things that were said during the meeting though, and that is executive orders were mentioned earlier, and there are no executive orders from the governor that mandate social distancing in classrooms or buses or anywhere else. That is the critical issue, as I understand it. That's keeping us from 5-day in-person instruction. There's guidance from State Education Department and State Department of Health, but it's merely guidance. It is, and in this case, the social distancing in the classroom is merely listed as best practice. So I think that the district ought to look at all of its options in terms of returning to 5-day-a-week instruction. The BOCES is open 5 days a week. Other districts are doing it. So it's not illegal. It's just a decision that the district has made at this point. Which brings me to another issue, which is I have openly praised the committee that helped develop our reopening plan multiple times, but I do have one concern about it, and that is its composition. I don't have an exact figure, but I predict it's about 80% of the committee was made up of district employees, and with only a smattering of district parents involved. While I appreciate all their efforts, and I know this is a complex problem that we've had to deal with at BOCES ourselves, with that very little parental representation, you're not going to get as much input and variety and diversity of opinion on that. The other issue I have is this committee was unelected, and the recommendations or the plan was essentially brought to the board, but as a presentation, the board never voted on it. I think, and if we're going to keep going back to that committee as the foundation for our reopening, then I think that the Board of Education needs to take a stronger role in that process. I do appreciate that when it came to opening Big Flats or not, when it came to athletics, that the administration came to the board, as I feel it rightfully should, and got our opinion about which direction we want to go. And that's where I think the decision-making authority lies, between the board and the superintendent to figure these things out. And again, I appreciate that committee and all the work that they put into it, but ultimately at the end of the day, it is the board that was elected to represent the community, and we need to have a voice in that process, an official voice in that process. Lastly, I wouldn't have expected this going through COVID like we have at BOCES and with Horseheads and talking with Chemung County Department of Health. but because I think everyone was concerned, would students be asymptomatic spreaders of COVID in the schools? And as it turned out, Chemung County Department of Health at least has been insistent that schools are the safest place for kids, safest place for employees. We know that over 75% of the spread that's happening right now is happening in small social gatherings. Very almost little to none is happening in schools and other places. And that's because we can keep an eye and monitor on rule compliance, mask compliance, social distancing, and all those other elements that help reduce spread. So if it's safest for kids and if it's safest for employees, we should be getting everyone back 5 days in person instruction as soon as possible. Thank you.
Just a couple things, and Dr. Douglas, if you want to interject as well. So just so I'm clear, I mean, my understanding regarding, the guidance from the state, I mean, my understanding is that the Department of Health, it's mandatory requirement for us to be socially distant. And so that's what our district has been following. And, Dr. Douglas, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not just best practice. They are mandatory requirements for the socially distance that we have been doing within the district to try to keep all the students and all of our staff safe. And then the other thing that I just want to react to is the committee of stakeholders that convened in the summer and then presented to us in the summer as well before school opened. We did have the opportunity to comment. We did have the opportunity to give feedback, and for that committee to also take that feedback and make adjustments if necessary. So, all of this, I don't think really warrants a board vote. It's more of, every time there's been decisions that have had to be made from an operations standpoint of the district has come to us for some guidance, for opinions, to be able to look at both sides of the coin, which we have given at every board meeting and for every decision that the district has had to make regarding closings and openings and staffing and things like that. So, I think it was a committee of experts that have the big picture at what needs to happen from an educational standpoint and how best to meet the needs of the community. And we had a thorough review of that back in the summer before school started. So, there's always an opportunity to look at things and refresh things, which is what I think Tony is doing and the rest of the administrative team is doing, continuing to get input and continue to look to see where we can tweak things and where we can make improvements. But, I also think that, I know at least myself, I'm not an expert when it comes to what needs to happen in the classroom and what's best for the education components of our children. So, I'm going to rely very heavily on those experts that were involved in those stakeholder meetings.
And I would, like you said, Christine, I would concur. Those are the documents that we went by. They are available. They have been even shared. The mandatory piece is, yes, there's always some subject to interpretation, but the district will go by the interpretation of its council. In addition, like I said, yes, we go back to that because we want to remind people we were the only district in the area to follow the guidelines, which said you were supposed to get that input. I know many other districts, including BOCES, that no superintendents were consulted and no other community members were, but each district has to do their own thing. So we can't backseat drive for them. But the issue is for us, we tried to follow the recommendations as well as the mandatory requirements for safety, security, and as promulgated by the State Education Department, Department of Health, as well as the governor's expectations. We'll disagree, but that's the way it is.
Doug.
Well, I just need to correct part of what Dr. Douglas said. I don't know what was shared with the superintendents, but we definitely included staff and parental input into our BOCES reopening plan.
And Doug, if I may say, if the comment is about involving stakeholders, aren't each of the school districts your main stakeholders, not just your staff?
Well, this is a Horseheads board meeting. I'm not here to debate what BOCES.
Oh, I know, I'm just pointing
And I'm
out.
just saying that we did have parental input, so that's not a correct statement.
Okay, well, I would hope that BOCES would include the 22 districts or any district, include the people that help pay the bills. And just like we included our community members, I would expect BOCES across the state to do that. But I know many were not able to with the functions of time that they were at. We were just fortunate enough to be able to make that plan. It's not a criticism of anybody. It's just the reality of what had to happen.
Warren?
So I'm all in favor of following best practices, especially during a pandemic. But if we're going to ignore best practices, can everybody else in the district during the instruction phase ignore best practices with no consequences? Seems we should model what we expect of our leaders or of our employees. We should model those things. And the other thing, and again, I'm no scientist. I was lucky to get through any science class I was ever involved in, but if those best practices where there was social distancing and masking makes schools safe, now we're saying ignore all of that and open it up for, I don't know what, but so I think we should follow the best practices. I've been very conservative in all of my observations, but I think the district has done the right thing. And I would endorse continuing following the best practices.
Any other comments? Marianne?
I'll keep it simple. I'll second what Warren just said. I think, you know, we go with the people who are the experts in each particular area. We've been told repeatedly on newscasts and scientists that, you know, the upcoming next 2 months may be the worst we've ever seen. Maybe. I know they're saying may, but it is something to be concerned about. So we need to be cautious.
Any other comments? Okay, just a couple things that I have. I know that many people have expressed some concerns into the district regarding a family issue that my family has dealt with for the past few weeks, an incident that happened on New Year's Eve with my son inviting several friends that turned into even more people at our home. As soon as we became aware of it, we addressed it, and we've been addressing it as a family and taking care of it. So I would just appreciate your courtesy and respect related to that. It had nothing to do with the board or my service on the board. And I've been 100% transparent with administration as well as with my fellow board members. So if anybody has any concerns or any questions regarding it, feel free to reach out to me personally. I'm happy to talk to anybody about it and to explain, you know, whatever details would need to be explained. But it has been taken care of as a family, and so I just would ask for your respect in our dealing with it as a family. And then lastly, I would just like to, well, not lastly, kind of echo on what Marianne said earlier with the upcoming retirements. I know several people on that list who are people that I have dealt with in the past with teaching my kids. So I think we're all going to miss everybody on that list when they do retire. So I just want to extend my congratulations to all of them. But I also want to congratulate Mrs. Corbett. So Marianne got married on New Year's Day, and so she is now Mrs. Corbett. So congratulations to Marianne, and we're very happy for you. And what a great way to start off 2021. So congratulations.
Oh, wait a minute, I'm talking.
You're
Yeah.
Go
live.
ahead, go ahead.
Bill said, that was the best thing ever because he'd really have a hard time forgetting our wedding anniversary.
Yeah. There you go. There you go.
It was a very quiet, simple, 6 people, the officiant and his wife, who had been a longtime friend of Dan's, or of Bill's, his name was Dan, and was qualified to be an officiant. And one of my best girlfriends and her husband. It was just the 6 of us and the 2 furries. And the thing that I found, and I thought it was hilarious. My really, really good friend in Gainesville, Florida, Instacarted a wedding cake to us via the Corning Wegmans. So technology did its thing, and we ended up with this wonderful wedding cake. The guy came. He said, "Hey, I've got a great cake here for Larry Friedberg." I said, "Well, he's in Gainesville, Florida, but I think the cake's for us."
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any other comments? Okay, well, that concludes our meeting. So if I can have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. And any abstentions? Okay, thank you. I hope you all have a wonderful night, and we will see you next time.